2 years ago, I backed my car, old Chevette, 84. Drove it till the engine smoked, hitched a ride through San Antone. Got a job, tending bar, let a senorita break my heart. I wanna sink my feet into some Illinois clay, walk along the cornfield in the cool of the day, get a dog and chase a rat.
All right. Hey, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We have the pleasure today of having Matt Cox and Don Wagner with us, both from the LandGuys here based out of Central Illinois. They have brokers kind of throughout the entire Midwest now. But a couple guys who have been diligently, they've worked through the Ground OS platform, which is the broker side of the CommonGround platform and website. That allows these guys to put their own properties up for lease for their clients. Go sell a piece of property to someone. You have been able to evaluate that maybe the cash rental rate is lower than what it should be through the tools within Ground OS as well as CommonGround. So they've done a good job of identifying pieces of property that are arguably maybe undervalued from another brokerage, or somebody who has anybody who has that piece of property for sale. They've done a great job of doing their due diligence, using the data and the tools through the system to be able to establish those pieces of property and then go out, increase the ROI on those farms for their landowner client, continuing to grow that relationship between broker and landowner, but also inherently increasing the value of that property. We refer to that as forced appreciation, where if you buy a piece of ground at, say, $5,000 an acre, they're getting $200 an acre in rent. You can establish through the data within CommonGround and Ground OS that farm should really ultimately be bringing closer to $300 an acre, $320 an acre. They get their buyer in there to take possession of that farm, and then they get the ROI up. In some cases, I know that you guys have operated on straight flips. Hey, this looked like a good opportunity. We're going to buy it. We're going to get the ROI up. We're going to sell it. And that cap rate has gone up.
100% of the time. All of my farms, every single one of them, we've increased it.
Yep. And so we want to have these guys on. We're going to continue to have more brokers with their experiences throughout the podcast. But these two close friends, I think the world of them, probably arguably some of the best brokers in Central Illinois. And if they're using it, I would encourage more or less, it's hard to not want to get on board from a broker standpoint, but also from a representation of your client's standpoint.
Oh, absolutely. Kind of establishes us as the experts in the area.
Yep.
It opens up a lot of doors. I've made numerous new contacts and new relationships, and it's been a very pleasurable experience. Everyone's been extremely happy with the results.
Thank you. And, it's kind of a methodology, I believe, for a long time that there's a lot of land brokers out there. The space is competitive, but everybody, to some extent, outside of the really high quality media that Don does, or the network that an individual broker might have, outside of that, everybody's doing the same thing.
Yep.
Okay, and so I want all these brokers to be able to be a expertise in the entire land space outside of just the buying and selling process. That arguably is pretty straightforward in some instances, especially when the market's been as strong as it is right now.
Right.
If you get a piece of property for sale, it goes pretty quick, and there's a list of buyers waiting for it. And so be able to take that even in these really good times for land brokerage and double down with the ability to get the ROI up and make these farms more affordable for people goes a really long ways.
It's easier to convince a buyer that, hey, this landowner hasn't been getting a good rate. Pretty positive we can get you this much more, changes the income. Now you've got a buyer that's more comfortable going after that farm when in years past, well, they don't get paid much, I'm not interested. So it does change the landscape in a buyer's opinion.
Sure. And it takes a lot of the fear away, because most of our buyers are not residents from out of the area, and they have no idea where to start. How do I find a new farmer?
Where do you find a new farmer, right?
take them by the hand, bring them onto the platform, and it's just oohs and ahs, and they love the process.
No, it won't.
They love watching the bids come in. They get so excited. They're constantly calling and texting, did you see that one? Did you see that one? It's like incrementally increasing, and yeah.
Outside of me, probably constantly texting you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is awesome. Yeah. And I mean, for full transparency, these guys are realistically competitors of mine in the land sale space. And I had to use this tool, right when we had come up with it to be able to go identify some farms for folks that were undervalued. I was using it, walking a farm through the site on my phone. Even I could run a cash rent estimate and tell a client, hey, listen,
Real time.
we're at 180 an acre right now. This is 124 PI timber soil, sure. But through the data that we've seen and the leases that have been executed through the platform, this farm actually should be bringing closer to $340 an acre. We need to go buy this farm. Mm-hmm. We're going to get the ROI up. Even if you don't love it, that's fine, because we're probably going to hold it for a year, and then we're going to go to the next one. But every time we're stepping up our value to be able to go buy a bigger farm, pretty much every single time. And at some point, I'm sure you have buyers who are like, hey, I finally got the exact farm I wanted.
This is the one.
Yeah, but only through the process of being able to increase that value by increasing the rate that comes in annually. And I know you both ran tillable auctions through successfully. You both had good hunting lease.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I've had some great hunting leases here recently. Like, the landowner calls, says, Matt, my hunters aren't going to hunt the farm this year. I kind of rely on that income every year. And the one here in Fulton County, we were at the 193 acres that we put on the auction platform. She went from like $5,000 a year to $11,600 a year for the next 3 years. Blew her mind. I mean, she's just.
And who's gonna for sure get to sell that farm when she's ready to sell it?
Yeah, the farm never sells, and it may not, and that's fine. But it's a close friend family, and they called me for what's a hunting lease worth. Well,
You have no idea.
Used to be worth. Let's see what it's worth now. And we went from $30 an acre or something like that to $60. It's crazy.
70.
Pretty mind-blowing.
Price discovery at its finest.
And there's no data out there to, and we talk about this quite a bit, that the data from, say, the University of Illinois Ag Extension, it's, first of all, the data is junk to begin with, in the aspect that it comes from postcard mailers to the operators in a county. I don't know why they would say that they're paying way more than what they are. So it's a bad source to begin with. Just the way it's structured. Not that guys are necessarily hereditarily going to be lying about it, but it's a poor resource. It's a one-sided resource. But by the time that stuff is published, corn at that point in time could have been, as volatile as these commodity markets are, it could have been $4.50. Well, now all of a sudden, corn this year is $6, sure. And the county average for, say, Fulton County, where we're at, is $210 an acre, for example. Well, for a landowner who doesn't know any better, they're looking at this data. This is published data, from the government through these resources of these colleges, U of I for here, Iowa State or Purdue for, state by state. But it's so dated. By the time it actually is published is the problem. The resource is not good. And so the big thing that we have is this data of, we combined all of these different data sets, and we're able to manipulate of what we believe is a fair value, which is that cash estimate process of, here's what your tillable ground could be worth. And now we're starting to gain enough data on the hunting lease side that, hey, we have now comps for, you've got another 160 acre tract in a similar region, whether it be Fulton, Schuyler, Knox, that you can expect $60, $70 an acre.
And the funny side of that is, like, the one guy that won the bid and is now paying $60 on that farm, he even expressed to me, he goes, well, I hope my other landowners, that because he's got other leases, they don't find him. People, that's what I'm paying. So all of a sudden, and that could affect some of their purchasability if all of a sudden all 5 of their farms are $60 an acre. Maybe this one doesn't hunt as well as that one, but that's similar data. But it's live data. It's real-time data that you're gathering through these auctions. Everybody knew that this farm falls in a good big deer area, and so they were willing to pay that, but other farms may not be quite as productive for big deer, so it may be worth a little less, but it's real-time data, and that's huge.
And the benefit for the brokers through being a Ground OS, which is a ground operating system partner, which is a sister company of CommonGround, is we treat these leases just like a co-op commission in a real estate sale. That if you're a Ground OS broker, you bring a piece of ground, if it's 15% that gets paid by the awarded hunter or 4% by the awarded tenant farmer, we split those percentages directly in half with the brokerage or the individual broker, however that brokerage wants. So it's a secondary resource for income from the same exact touch that you already had. Like, we just sold the guy a piece of ground. He needs a farmer. Why would you walk away and say, well, I don't know, good luck, like call this guy? Sure. So when you can monetize this and then help do your due diligence for your landowner, say, hey, listen, we had 11 different bidders on this farm. We're going to kind of weed out the top 4, and we're going to say, hey, actually, we're familiar with the high bidder. Maybe doesn't have a great reputation. And I know that because I'm the local expert in the land space. But the second, third guys, they were only $10 less, but they're really, really good operators. And, I think we should have conversation with them. And I know, like for you, you've said that you've been able to have introductions with maybe out-of-state guys that you never would have had any contact with.
Absolutely. And through the process, I'm one of the guys that if I listed on there, I'm going to talk to every bidder, every person that signs up. I get notified, which is handy. I get an email from CommonGround that says, hey, we got a new bidder, or hey, request agent to call or whatever. And through the conversation, some of these guys are buyers,
They become buyers.
I'm looking for something to buy down the road, but until then, I need something to hunt. And if this is the area I want to be in, so I've collected a lot of information about potential buyers, and they're all saved in my phone. And I've kind of created a new buyer list that I was lacking there for a little while.
And every registered bidder through your Ground OS, through your own individual login, you will have record of everybody who registered for your auctions. Phone numbers, emails, everybody that, we want to basically give land brokers the tools to increase their network through a different channel that's going to ultimately roll into sales at some point. Yeah. That, hey, you didn't just help me. Anybody can go help me buy a piece of ground. I call you. I say, hey, I like this. Okay, great. Let's go take a walk. Let's look at it. I'll write the offer up. I'll see you in 45 days at closing. From closing, see you later. Congrats. Have a great day. And that's
just 90% of the brokers out there.
That's it. But all you have to do is just take one more step. You make more money, but you really, really coddle that relationship. And it's a reason for brokers now, even if you're just getting into Ground OS, and you've been a broker for 10 years or 5 years, you have a network of people that you've sold ground to in the past. Mm-hmm. And so it's a great opportunity to say, hey, you bought that farm 3 years ago. We haven't talked in a couple years. I've got a tool that I can help you. Are you still getting the same rate? Or, well, yeah, it's been kind of a little bit of a battle back and forth with this operator. But I live in Wisconsin. I don't have any choice. I have no idea where to start even. And so being that resource, then, it's a good opportunity to reintroduce those discussions with those folks that you worked with in the past.
And they're always open to talking about it. No one has ever shut me down. They've always opened the door.
They've all talked to me, except for the guys that maybe just recently locked into a new 3-year deal.
Sure. Yeah, but there's something about it.
3 years. Yeah. We're going to keep texting, talking. Within 3 years, they're going to say, hey, what are cash rents doing now? Mm-hmm. Well, let's throw it on this platform. You see what's going on. Or, hey, this guy's not hunting my farm anymore. Let's throw it back on there. Mm-hmm. I want the return higher. And it will keep that. It'll force us as brokers to keep that relationship open.
I think it's good.
Sure.
Yeah. Wise. Yep. If you're doing a good job. I believe this should just be one of the steps of the process. Tools that
Exactly.
And so do you guys have any other thoughts that you want to like talk about just the system or how it's helped you out or benefits that you've seen?
I'll be really curious once LandGuys is ready to jump into the auction platform. I've got some we're looking at. That's not something LandGuys has offered in the past. I think that's going to be a big deal because people do contact me. They know me, trust me, but maybe it's more of a tillable piece.
On the sale auction side.
On the sale auction side. So I'm pretty excited about something.
We have a couple
coming up soon here, right?
Soon.
Yeah.
So that's an avenue that I never had access to prior to now, short of calling someone and saying, hey, can I get you to do a referral for me, commission side? Now, that's a big deal. So the platform works. If it works as well as it does for the cash rent and the hunting lead, this is going to be a huge tool.
Well, the other neat thing, like I was very adamant that we needed to have, through the leasing stuff, we basically do have a online auction platform ready. We did have to do, a fair amount of changes for the sales auction to be functional, but it's fully functional now. And so it's just another piece of the puzzle that is offered through Ground OS. It's a very simple system. It works great. And so to be able to give you guys the opportunity of, auctions that has kind of been the hot thing here for the last 2-3 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially on tillable tracts that are hard to price because depending on who the neighbor is, it could run to the moon. And
motion is getting away.
That's it. Yeah. And so it's hard to put a number on a tillable farm these days.
The hard part is it's such a wide range that you throw someone, now you almost sound incompetent. Like you don't know.
Yeah, somewhere between 12,000 and 10,000.
Lord, I thought you were the throwing a number out there and hope it sticks. I don't know. And honestly, even like that hunting lease, I told her I was hoping, if we could bump that to 7,500, I think that'll be great. And all of a sudden we made it to 11,600 and she just about fell out of her chair when I called her. She's like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm like, no, it really blew my mind too.
Well, there's some legwork. You have to still do your job. You gotta introduce these people. What, you took a couple $1,000 off of that one?
Yeah.
And a really happy landowner?
Yeah, ecstatic landowner. And I made, $2,500 for answering my phone, which I do 100% of the time anyway. Yeah, I answered the phone, talked to people, possibly got new clients. It's kind of a no-brainer. I'll try to get more of these. If people want help, call me.
Yeah, absolutely. And just be the expert in everything, land, right? Your experiences have been positive. I think your landowners have been happy.
Oh, yeah. Some of them are making a business model out of it.
Right. Yeah. So, right. And just keep running them through.
Just running them through. Yeah. Looking for opportunities and
increasing the value of those farms.
There's a lot of opportunities.
It's spectacular. And you guys both have properties up right now. So you've got a hunting lease still?
It just did.
It did just.
Yep.
Do you have any up at the moment?
No. I possibly have a cash rent coming up.
Okay.
But we're still working out details. They are offering it to someone that's been helping them out for the last couple of years, and we'll wait to see what he says. If he's not interested or not willing to pay what we kind of think it might bring, then I think we're going to bring that up. And, it's the right time of year. They've got to start, one, letting them know that you're not farming it anymore, and then two, these guys are going to be in the field sooner than you know, so they're going to know what the yields are doing and what they're willing to pay this upcoming year. And
that's something I want to touch on in the aspect that, for each state is slightly different. For termination letter deadlines, like the state of Iowa, September 1st. And so
they're right now.
It's approaching real quickly. The end of October for Illinois, Indiana is different. And so we're going to talk more and more about this, but it's something that brokers should educate their landowner on, or landowners should educate themselves on, that just because you're sending a termination letter to your tenant this year, whether you're on a handshake, you have to do it.
Yep.
Or if you have a lease that's expiring this year, it doesn't mean that you're going to fire your farm. Okay?
Exactly.
All it means is that if you don't get that letter out in Iowa before September 1,
they're firing it.
at the exact same terms that the previous lease was. And so if that was a 3-year lease or 4-year lease in the state of Iowa, when corn was, in the 4s consistently, well, we need to reevaluate this. But if you let that September 1 deadline lapse, well, you're stuck. That's what you're getting.
3 or 4 more years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Disappointing.
And so to me, it's obviously, it's never a fun thing to do, to put this letter together. We have templates in-house that we love to help folks with, but it's simply tenant name, the parcel number, a brief description of the property, acreage, and, hey, the lease is ending on March 1st of 2024, say, for this year. Well, all that does is give you the opportunity to have those discussions, reevaluate. Maybe you want something different. And say, hey, like I've noticed some erosion in the field, or the neighbor said, we're having. So I would really, really like you to go to a no-till sort of an operation, or maybe we put a goose pit out in that field last year. I'm tired of you chisel plowing it every year like you insist to do. We're no longer going to allow any disking or any field tillage work whatsoever.
After season or whatever.
Fresh, or or maybe in the spring maybe, but. So there's an assortment of things like, we're getting $3,000 out of this pit now, but the guys have been unhappy because it's a mud mess and the geese don't like the chiseled corn stuff.
I could get $5,000 if you would stop doing that.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, hey,
Right.
It may affect a little bit of how you're farming it, but it's going to increase my ROI a different.
Well, landowners need to recognize, though, it's their asset. It's none of these farms are cheap to hold these days. Taxes continue to go up. Interest rates continue to go up. If you were on a 5-year, balloon sort of a deal, or a 5-year non-fixed, well, your day of reckoning's coming. That you got in, you were able to buy this farm at 3.5% interest at the time. Well, now that note's due,
825 probably.
well, you had best be getting more income off that farm to be able to make the math work.
Right.
And so, our data is free to landowners. It's out there to educate. Run a cash rent estimate, which is our proprietary algorithm of what should you be getting in rent. And we stay conservative on it, but most every landowner is seeing over our high end at the auction time. And the high bidder, they never win automatically. So your farmer, your current tenant could be paying $200. Tell them, hey, I need to know what this is worth. This is a very, very valuable, expensive asset that I'm holding here. And I need to know what it's worth. So I would like for you to continue to farm, but I need you to be competitive so I can afford my property. Sure. Okay. And it makes perfect sense that if we all own a bunch of rental houses and apartments and stuff, we don't let our renters tell us what they're going to pay us to live there, right?
Not exactly.
And that's not an $80,000 house.
Sure.
We're talking millions of dollars worth of farm ground that the operator's saying, here's what I'm going to pay. And the landlord goes, okay, I guess sounds good to me. With no sort of resource of education, we want landowners to utilize our broker network. And you can call directly. We can tell you, if you've got a farm over anywhere in Indiana, we have brokers there. If you have a farm in Illinois, Iowa, we have brokers everywhere that we trust. They have good reputations, and we're going to set you up with them for nothing. Have an expert in the space outside of a farm manager who's going to charge you 6 or 7% to give the farm to their buddy up the road who's probably paying them under the table, and you're not getting a fair shake. The farm managers don't like the transparency in it, which makes no sense to me. You're working for the landowner, but you don't like the fact that your landowner sees that through our platform, they're getting 40, 50, 60% more.
That's
it is mind-boggling.
It just doesn't really add up. It seems like a poor business model that
it's worked that way for years, but that's kind of been the farming community. Landowners farmed it for 20, 30 years, and his numbers don't change the way that they probably do.
And the dynamics of land ownership is changing considerably as we move forward through institutions and people who are diversifying their portfolios that have zero experience with owning land but know it's tangible versus equities and different things like that.
Absolutely.
So that's where us come into play.
To have an expert, and it doesn't cost the landowner a dime.
Well, when we were guilty of it, you were too prior to this. We were, as brokers, we were guilty of just saying, well, it's worth
Right. Because
75 an acre in this area is all you're probably going to get. That's because that's all they were willing to pay. But the current farmer knows the guy that really wants to farm it, and he's not going to go step on his toes. He's not going to do it because they're neighbors,
right.
to some degree. So they're just not going to do it. But once it jumps to an auction platform, I think that's kind of fair game.
And the gloves come off. It is. We've seen it every time. I never got a tread on this guy until now. Yeah, and Rob Chardy, who was here earlier, he's a farmer, and he said the same thing. He goes, "I would never go tread on a neighbor," but he's like, in order to grow, you're either the first in line at the funeral, talking to the family, or you, I guess, just put your name in a hat and hope that they call you at the point that they need a new operator. If somebody's retiring or something like that. But this is a non-offensive, and some farmers and operations simply have a different threshold of what they're able to pay based on their structure, how big they are, things along those lines. How good they are at trading commodities. In some cases, is a lot of these guys make a lot of money off of the way that they trade their commodities. They might not be the largest farmers, but they're very, very viable farmers because they're good at that side of the business.
Yeah.
But it's a small portion that are. And so, it's people's appetite for stuff is just simply different. That farmer A might say, I'm happy making $150 in profit off this. Farmer B might say, well, I need to make $300 profit off it for me to go plant and put the time in. But you don't know. Some guys have equipment these days that I've seen it personally. I'm sure you guys have too. Some of these guys with these new combines, there's not a kernel of corn left in the field. Like before, it was like, I want the guy with the 1960 leaner on my deer hunting farm because half of it goes in, it stays on the ground, and I've got more happy wildlife than you can shake a stick at. It's great. So I'll still take a farmer with the gleaner as long as he's paying, the math doesn't work probably, but these guys who are picking it all up, the precision planting has helped yields out. Just simply collecting the grain that's in the field when you go to pick it, yields have gone up, values of ground have gone up, but rental rates still stay very stagnant. Everything should kind of follow suit.
Yep.
And these commodities are very vulnerable right now. They, it's day to day, they change. That's probably propped up and, as made up in some instances as the next. It's all speculative. But, there's just different farmers for different places. And what we like to do a lot is, and we're going to start doing this more and more, but it's perfect that Don's here with us. I wanted to showcase this piece of ground here. It's a new piece that Don put up in Knox County, Illinois. What we got?
Straight north of Galesburg.
Straight north of Galesburg. 143.5 tillable on 160.7 total. Average PI is 117. We've had 4 unique bidders so far. This has been up, 3-4 days?
Yeah, just a few. I had a couple of calls just today and a lot of questions. There's going to be more bidders coming in pretty quick.
That's great. And they were getting before mid-2, maybe?
I believe.
Okay, somewhere in there. But we're up already, and there's a lot of time left on this thing.
Shy of a month.
28 days still.
They really shine in the last week.
Oh yeah, that's when they get the competitive juices start flowing.
Just got to schedule some time for returning phone calls and that.
What I think you and me had the conversation. You're one that just ended. I forgot it just ended, but we were talking a couple hours before that. Like, man, I thought this was going to go for more. Me too. Well, that last hour, it's just emails. Yeah. New bid. Like, all right, we knew it'd get there. Just some take longer than others.
You will ultimately get the people that call and say, hey, I'll offer this right now. I'm just in the bidding and I'll take it. Well, I beat that number every time they've called.
Correct.
So it's kind of like, okay, no, let's just trust the system. And
it'll get there.
If you're interested, dive in there.
Yeah.
And they're usually, they'll bid right to that number.
Mm-hmm.
Bid on, and it keeps going.
Yep.
So,
but this farm lays nice. It sure appears to. You got waterways in the center there.
Well maintained.
yeah, just a nice farm. Nice soils for its PI anyway. You've got a nice mix in there. Radford Soil PI of 136 makes up what is that? 15 acres of that farm. 131 PI at Osco Silt, 45 That's probably a pretty good yielding tract that somebody's going to be interested in. And so, this one will be fun to watch for the next 28 days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Matures on my birthday.
Perfect. There we go. Yeah. That's fun. But yeah, so something to look at for anybody in the Central Illinois, Knox County area. Definitely worth taking a look at this farm, and reach out directly to any LandGuys guys, throughout Illinois here. We've got some Mossy Oak Properties groups around, some folks in Oklahoma, Arrowhead. And so reach out to us. We can connect you directly with these qualified, really, really good guys that we trust. And they just do a good job. It's that simple.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So thank you guys so much for joining us.
Very welcome.
Usually Chris does the sign off of the fact that we want to thank our sponsors, which is nobody. We keep trying for LG TVs, this Pollywood tables, Red Sox cups. That's about all we got. So so thank you everybody for joining us. Matt, Cox, Don Wagner, LandGuys. Go check them out, landguys.com. Check out their listings on CommonGround.io. Look for leases. You can look on their site for everything coming up. They do have some for sale auction tillable stuff coming up, so keep an eye for that. Give them a shout. Thank you. Thanks for everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys.